with Cooper Rush, they haven't really been pushing the ball downfield. I feel like Philly will probably force them to, and it may not end well.
I think this is going to be the game that all the people who are claiming that Cooper Rush is better than Dak Prescott are going to realize how dumb that comment is.
Welcome back to Shut Up and Ball. I am Aaron Chow, accompanied by Mr. John Harris. Just two dudes here talking football today, as per usual. But today we're making our Week 6 picks against the spread. And so just to update you all that have been following our little race, because we've been doing it all year. Going into last week, I was 2 games ahead of John. After Week 5, the results, I got 2 games on John. Could have been worse. You can thank Cincy for that, since he covered. But anyways, so now I'm 4 games ahead of John. Nothing he hasn't come back from. I think the first year he came back from a pretty big deficit too, if I remember. He came close. Regardless, still a lot of time left. So it's not like I have a big cushion. And FYI too, John's probably seen the spreadsheet, but for once again, you all, I'm literally at 500. Like I'm 40-40 and John's 36-44. So, and once again, we don't do ties. Sometimes in regards to the spreads, like we mentioned in the previous episode, in case you all are wondering, all spreads are provided from thelines.com. There they have like literally spreads from like all of the betting sites. So I always try to get the 0.5s because we're just a 2-man crew. Once again, we're just 2 dudes, and I am not going to sit here and try to calculate a tie or a push. That's no fun. But anyways, speaking of fun, this Thursday night game probably won't be, and that's where we will start. It is the Washington Commanders. They are favored by 0.5 point going to the Windy City of Chicago to play the Bears. Surprisingly, the Bears have a better record. But once again, like I mentioned, kind of an uninspiring Thursday night game. John, what are your expectations for this one?
This is going to be an ugly one. I don't have high hopes for this.
But will it be as bad as last Thursday? Like, I don't think it can be as bad as last Thursday.
I don't think it can be, because I have to imagine that one of the teams here scores a touchdown. And like just doing that instantly makes it better, whether it's like great football or not. Just putting up points, people will be happy, because then at least like people who are betting and fantasy players and all that get some sort of excitement out of it. Although if you're starting players in this game for fantasy purposes, you probably got a rough team out there. Unless you got like David Montgomery
Terry
or like
McLaurin.
Yeah, he's been rough in fantasy so far though.
It has not been a great Terry McLaurin year. I was so excited to get him because like garbage time with Wentz, he's just going to force it to him, and as hasn't really been that case.
Maybe this is the week though. Regardless, because Justin Jefferson just destroyed them, but we'll see. So the Chicago Bears, I'm going to pick them to cover here. A large part of this, or sorry, actually no, I'm going to take. Yeah, I'll take Chicago. I was about to change my pick live because it's basically a pick 'em, but I'm going to take Chicago. Screw it. I don't have any feel for this game, really. Chicago, the tough part here is they're really bad against the run. Historically, their defense has been good, but they're not good against the run this year. But then Washington doesn't have like the greatest stable of running backs, like Brian Robinson. I think that this maybe could be a good game for him, but we just haven't seen enough out of him to like truly know. And the Washington offensive line concerns me. I don't know. I'm going to pick Chicago here just off of maybe the fact that last week it looked like maybe Justin Fields was figuring it out a little bit, and David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert could get something going in the run game. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing a dart at a dartboard here and just seeing where it lands without any true intention of what's going to happen, because I don't know. That's why the line is so close. It's literally a coin flip, because it's who knows.
Yeah. Well, one of us will, because I am going the other way. I'm going with Washington Commanders. You're right. It is not an easy game to pick, but basically I just have more confidence in their offense. I know especially Ron Rivera and everyone, although Ron, walked back his comment real fast, wants a dog on Carson Wentz, but let's just be honest. It's been, the passing game's been better than it was last year with Taylor Heineke, and that's to be expected. Yes, they aren't really winning games, but the defense has been disappointing, and that's, I think, falls on Mr. Jack Del Rio over there. He has not done a great job. I will say last week that the Washington D-line played better. I think we all know that they're talented. I mean, they have 3 first-rounders, on their healthy right now. They played better last week. I think that they'll slow down the Bears' run game, which they seem to just to be leaning on, because that's another reason why I'm picking against Chicago. It just until they take Justin Fields off his, unleash Justin Fields or just let him play, I don't have any comments. I mean, he still only threw 21 times last week, and they were behind for most of that game. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. But, basically, I just have more confidence in Washington, especially their passing game. We saw, hopefully my guy, De'Ami Brown, can follow up his great performance last week. Another good one. We mentioned Terry McLaurin and Carson Wentz really haven't been clicking as some of us expected them to. So hopefully, they figure that out. And they already gave Brian Robinson a lot of work last week. I was very surprised to see. I think they gave him like 20, not 20, but a double-digit carries. So
double-digit touches,
even though
he had 9 carries.
Touches.
But that led the running back room in carries. I think he had like over 50% of the carries as a unit.
And they were behind like all game too. So game flow didn't really go his way either. But I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm not saying that he's going to run all over the place. I still think Washington's the offensive line isn't great, but the Bears isn't really inspiring either. So in a battle of the lesser teams, I'm going with I'm just going with the team I'm more confident offensively on Thursday. But it's a Thursday night game, as we all saw last week. Anything good or bad can happen really on Thursdays. So first difference of the week right there on Thursday night. I'm not doing injuries, by the way, just because we can mention some key ones, but it's blame ESPN. Anyways, now we go to the Sunday games. No London game this week, so you don't have to wake up at 8 a.m. to set your lineup, or like me, if you want to watch your team lose and then ruin the rest of your day. But now we go to a quote-unquote revenge game here, going to Atlanta, where the San Francisco 49ers, they're favored by 5.5 points against the Falcons, once again at Atlanta, the quote-unquote Kyle Shanahan revenge game, even though he's probably already played Atlanta since he left. But yeah, John, what are your thoughts here? Do you think the Cover Kings in Atlanta continue their hot streak?
I'm going with Atlanta here for the only sole fact of the fact they're the Cover Kings. That is it. I'm riding the hot streak until they fail me, despite the fact that I only jumped onto this bandwagon last week. It was looking like they were going to break it the moment I jumped on last week, and then at the very end of that game, fourth quarter, they outscored the Bucs 15-0, and they almost came back and won if it wasn't for that controversial call. So I'm going to take Atlanta for the sole fact that they are the Cover Kings. There is literally no other analysis behind that, and I'm okay with it.
All right, well, I'm getting off the Cover King train. I wrote it last week too, and yeah, that was scary. I'm going with San Francisco here. I think we've kind of saw last week they could really beat up on the Panthers, and I think the Panthers and Falcons are kind of in that same boat talent-wise, especially offensively. I mentioned it before. I don't mean to dog on Mariota, just not a consistent enough thrower, and he's gonna have to make some throws against this very good San Francisco front seven. Even if they are missing Nick Bosa, they've shown that they still have other guys, Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, other pieces to make up for if he is not 100% or is out this game, because I know he's dealing with an injury. I expect the San Francisco offense to be its usual thing. Kyle Shanahan finds the ways to run the ball efficiently, and then, some play action off of that. Atlanta just doesn't have much talent. So I am going against the Cover Kings. We'll see if their streak continues. But I believe we both expect San Fran to win this one. Would you pick, and would you say this would be one of yours? Because I'm an eliminator or survivor pool. I don't know what the correct phrase is. I thought about picking this game, but I didn't. I didn't pick the Falcons, also because I already used the Falcons, I found out. But
I don't know. I actually don't even know what an eliminator thing is.
Sorry, it's like those ones where you pick a team to lose each week, and then once you pick that team, you can't pick that team again if you survive. If
Gotcha.
You're right.
So you're basically saying, do I think they're going to lose? I would feel pretty
Are
confident.
you pretty confident?
I would feel pretty confident because from what I've here's the thing too. So I saw this thing and it was a fantasy football tweet, but it does kind of relate to real life and the fact that oftentimes when teams play against zone coverage, which the Niners are one of the most zone heavy teams, you're going to get a lot more plays to the running backs and tight ends. And we've already just seen that they don't have Cordell Patterson out there, so I don't really trust Algier and those kind of guys to make big plays. And Pitts is coming off an injury, so he might be limited, but they were already limiting his snaps anyway. So even Drake London in the limited games he's played so far against man coverage, his target share is way higher. So I just think just inherently them running zone is going to force Atlanta to either use Kyle Pitts or suffer. And I think even if they use Kyle Pitts, I don't think their defense is going to stop the Niners. So, yeah.
All right. Just curious because, if there were an option, it was them and another team, which I'll mention later. Anyways, second disagreement on the board there between John and myself. Now we head to the Northeast where the Cleveland Browns, they are at home. I'm guessing we're going to see that weird elf on the field again, or was that a one-time thing? I'm not sure. Honestly, don't care. Regardless, they're playing the New England Patriots. Browns are favored by 2.5 against New England, surprisingly. Maybe that's probably just the home field advantage there. So, John, who do you have here between the Browns and the Patriots? By the way, Bailey Zappi will be starting this game, I think they said. Pretty confident.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Patriots here. We just saw what they are able to do to the Detroit Lions, and I don't think that the Browns offense is... I think they have a much safer floor than Detroit does. Detroit was riding this high the first couple of weeks, and I don't think that Cleveland is going to get shut out by any means. But I do think that I just think that this is a game where, if anyone's going to get Jacoby Brissett to make a couple mistakes, it's going to be Bill Belichick. We saw that he was able to do a lot against Jared Goff last week, and so on the times they do pass, I don't know. I like New England's defense here. I like Ramondre Stevenson in this game. Cleveland's run defense has kind of been suspect. We just saw Austin Eckler have a big game against them. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Patriots here just because I do think that Cleveland's weaknesses are going to make life a little bit easier for Bailey Zappi, how you pronounce his last name, and that offense. And then I think that New England's got the defensive advantage.
Yeah, I don't have much else to add on that because I am also going New England. Like you already alluded to. I mean, this offense, even with Mac Jones, I think they've kind of answered the early skepticism. It's not a bad offense as we've seen, and they do have a good run game, like you mentioned. And I just think that the Browns have issues defending against that. They are a simplistic defense and not very big defensive line either way. I mean, they got like you said, they got pushed around by the Chargers last week. Patriots, much better run team and much more physical of a run team as well. And especially if there is for some reason poor weather or such, I mean that advantage New England. And on the flip side, New England's defense, I think they seem to be one of the better run defenses in the league. So I think they'll definitely be able to slow down that run game. And I'm sure they'll be all over the pass game, the very simplistic Cleveland pass game there anyway. And Jacoby Brissett came from New England, so I'm sure they know, some of his abilities, what he can and can't do. Some of the throws that he can make and can't make. So they'll probably make life tough for him, like you mentioned. So we both go New England there. First agreement of the day for us. Now we head back over to my game. My Green Bay Packers, they're actually at home this time at Lambeau. They are favored by 7.5, hosting Zach Wilson and the New York Jets. John, who do you have here? Are you riding with Zach Wilson or going with my Packers?
This is actually less about Zach Wilson and more about Breece Hall. I'm riding with the Jets here. I think that Breece Hall is going to continue his hot streak, have a big game. The Packers' run defense isn't terrifying like maybe it used to be. Saquon, for the most part, was held in check last week, but he did get a big play. And I think that Breece Hall has been a big play machine so far. And also just, I think I took Green Bay last week on a big spread. They didn't cover. And I took them the week before against New England. They didn't cover. I'm just not going to risk it again. And of course, knowing my luck, this is going to be the week they do. But the 7.5 feels a little bit big. If it was maybe 6.5, then I might feel a little more comfortable. But just considering the back-to-back weeks I've taken them against the spread on spreads that were bigger than a touchdown, I'm not doing it a third time. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me once, can't get fooled again, as George Bush once said.
Yeah. I'm going to Jets also. And yes, I am invoking the pod curse / jinx, but I think also we've seen like Green Bay. Only game I think we really kind of quote beat up on somebody was the Bears, and I think we all see how and that game could have been closer too if they ruled Justin Fields as a touchdown. I think that would have covered that spread anyway. I think I have major concerns for the offense. I know this shouldn't be a shocker, but just no real explosive plays, like especially deep down the field. And I mean, there are a few times when Rodgers has gotten the ball to someone 5-10 yards down the field, and then they maybe break a tackle or two or find a seam. But I'm not sure if it's Rodgers not being aggressive, or it's the LaFleur play design, or just not trusting the receivers and not having the people to rely on dependably to run those medium to deep routes. Yeah, it's just too much relying on the run game. A few game plan specific plays. Like I've said, usually we come out to a good start, and then second half, it's like, okay, now we just have to hold on. And the Jets have been pretty good in regards to making adjustments. And like you already alluded to, I mean, you mentioned Breece Hall, but they have really good receivers. And for some reason, we've been Joe Barry has been real conservative, kind of playing a bend don't break defense. And I just think if you do that against the Jets and Zach Wilson, they'll eventually start making plays, especially with Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, like they have some pretty good playmakers there, and their defense isn't bad either. So I expect their defense to hold their own and give Rodgers and the gang troubles. I mean, Saleh came from San Francisco. When Saleh was there too, they gave Rodgers issues in this offense, and that was when he had Devontae Adams, and probably you could say a better O-line overall than. Now, no Devontae Adams. O-line, isn't as great. Bakhtiari's still finding his way back. Same with Elton Jenkins. I hate to be a skeptic Packer fan, but that's what it is. And I'm not even confident. I'm not even confident we can win this game. It's still 50-50 objectively, but it's one where I'm glad we have the points. So I'm going Jets. I just don't foresee Green Bay winning if they do win by more than 7. So we will see if we were right there, and if the pod jinx for me carries on. But keeping it, or going to the AFC South, the ever so fun AFC South, we have the Indianapolis Colts at Indianapolis, and surprisingly, they are favored by 2.5 hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, John, in this exciting AFC South matchup, who do you have between these two?
I mean, obviously, this game happened like not even that long ago. A month ago was week 1 when they first matched up. This time, luckily for the Colts, I guess it's not in Jacksonville. I don't know their record when they play the Jags in Indianapolis. I assume it's got to be like they're splitting most of those years where they lost to them because of how bad Jacksonville was. But I'm still going to go with Jacksonville here. The status of Jonathan Taylor, I think, is still up in the air, questionable. I don't know the status of Naheem Hines. I just haven't seen enough from that offensive line for me to think that they're just going to turn it around in 1 week. Now, they're absolutely talented enough to do so, but something is just off over there. Matt Ryan has not been super inspiring. We saw when they first played. I know that like a lot of people too are going to want to say, well, that was because they're playing in Jacksonville and they're going to bring up the history. But if you actually looked into that game, there was a lot more to it. Like when we first watched that game, the Jags defensive line was doing really well. They controlled the pace of play. They were in the backfield a ton against Matt Ryan. Jonathan Taylor didn't get anything going. Like Jacksonville looked very good in that game. And actually, sorry, that was week 2. And regardless, Trevor Lawrence in that offense was able to move the ball pretty effectively. I'm pretty sure Christian Kirk had a big game. So I don't know. I'm taking Jacksonville here. I know that Jacksonville's kind of faltered the last couple weeks, and losing to Houston is not the greatest of looks, but I think that might be a wake-up call for them. They're going to rebound a little bit here. It's a team that they're familiar with. They've already beaten them once, so now you just got to kind of get back to your basics and do it again. And for the Colts, I got to see more. I mean, they beat the Chiefs, and that was great, but that game against the Broncos, Yeah, I think that if they're playing almost any other team in the NFL in that game, they probably lose because the Broncos just didn't do anything offensively, and most other teams would probably at least be able to get a touchdown.
I am right with you. I'm going Jacksonville. The fact that Indianapolis is favored is very surprising to me, but maybe because they're the home team, and like you mentioned, because Jacksonville's kind of fallen from grace, lost to the Eagles, and lost last week to the Texans. I mean, but I will say Jacksonville's defense has been, amidst the two losses, their defense has done their job. They've done a really good job of, last week held the Texans down to 13 points. That's all you can really ask, especially with all the turnovers or some of the turnovers and mistakes that the offense made. So I'm confident in their defense that they'll probably get after Matt Ryan plenty and create some issues and turnovers there. And the offense, we know the offense has some playmakers. Trevor Lawrence has gone through a little bit of growing pains the last 2 weeks, but I'm confident that he can get it corrected here, especially if it's another game without Shaquille Leonard for the Colts. And I expect Jacksonville to have answers, like we mentioned earlier. Like you mentioned, week 2 they had all the answers, and I expect for them to kind of carry that formula on, especially with no Jonathan Taylor on the other side. Because then the Colts, only difference makers they really have are, Pittman and I would say Alec Pierce, who's been playing really well recently. But those are kind of far and few between when Matt Ryan's getting sacked in between every other pass play. So we are both going Jacksonville there to not only probably cover, but win, I'm guessing. So that'll be an interesting one. See if the Colts can. Hey, maybe the Colts just need an ugly win and they've start reaching the potential we believed that they could at the beginning of the season. But John and I are not thinking that, at least this week. But now we head over to Florida, where the Minnesota Vikings, they are favored by 3.5 going to the Miami Dolphins. If I remember correctly, I think they've already ruled Tua out of this game. I think Teddy's probably doubtful. It's looking like it's going to be their third stringer, who I'm already forgetting his name. My apologies.
Skylar Thompson.
It was a cool name. I remember that. I was just thinking, it's a kind of cool name, but I just don't remember. Skylar Thompson making his first official start here after being thrusted in last week. And obviously Minnesota off that big win against the Bears. Who do you have here, John, between these teams?
I'm going with Minnesota. I think that Skylar Thompson in preseason showed some pretty cool stuff, but that was preseason last week. And it's a little unfair because, I heard something from Teddy Bridgewater, actually, which is funny. It was him, but he was talking about like his first game when he was with the Saints and he became the starting QB during Breeze being out. And he was like, I did not feel prepared when I had to go into that game. And he was like, I never want to let myself feel like that again. So like he would go in and he's prepared. And I think Skylar Thompson will be prepared here, but I still just don't trust what I've seen out of him so far to think that him and those receivers, which also like Tyreek Hill's banged up. Apparently he's in a walking boot after last week's game. So I just don't trust him in that offense essentially to be able to move the ball effectively enough to keep up with what has looked like a really good Minnesota offense recently. Like we've talked about, they're quietly 4-1. Justin Jefferson is killing it. He had a couple like down weeks, but back to killing it last week. Dalvin Cook is obviously doing well. Madison's contributing. So yeah, Thielen's doing well, and Kirk Cousins, he's been better than expected. So I'm going to take Minnesota here just because of the Skylar Thompson factor.
We'll say, although it won't really affect my pick. Tyreek logged a full practice today as a Wednesday when we're recording, so it's looking like he'll be playing. But I am also going Minnesota. You already hit the Skylar Thompson factor. I know last week they ran the ball with some success, but they're also, they got behind at some point. And I just don't think Minnesota, their strength is their front seven. So I think they'll slow down the run game. And then, I'm not sure Skylar Thompson can be consistent enough in the passing game. Although, we do know that McDaniels is very good at getting these receivers in some advantageous situations, even in the short passes, kind of like he did with Tua. But I'm just not confident that Skylar won't make a mistake or something of that sort. And then, Minnesota offense has been pretty good as of recently, and the Miami defense, while I do respect it and I think it is very talented, they just tend to be too aggressive, and especially against Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, like you mentioned, all these weapons. I just feel like they're going to be over aggressive at points, especially if their offense is struggling. And then boom, they get hit with a Justin Jefferson bomb, or Adam Thielen long play, or maybe Dalvin Cook finds a lane. They're just and yeah, like you mentioned, Kirk Cousins has been very solid thus far. Hasn't been killing them, and he's been making all the throws he needs to make. I mean, post chain Kirk Cousins may be a real thing here. We'll see, but regardless, I think I'm with you. I think Minnesota takes care of business here and wins against Miami, and covers, of course. And yeah, I'm just not confident that Miami defense can save the day. So that is that one. Now we go staying in the Gulf Coast, going to New Orleans, where the Cincinnati Bengals, they're favored by 1.5, going to the New Orleans Saints, the Andy Dalton revenge game. So because will be starting for New Orleans. John, who do you have here between the Bengals and Saints?
I'm going to go with the Bengals. The Bengals defense, I think, has impressed me for the most part so far. Also, the Saints are dealing with some injuries. I think Michael Thomas should be able to go because I'm pretty sure he returned to practice, but like Olave's dealing with that concussion. And so they got some questionable pieces on the offensive side. And so I'm going to go with Cincinnati here. The one thing that worries me is the Zach Taylor effect. I mean, we've been looking at the charts, the route trees, and I know Chris Sims just took a deep dive into that, comparing Jamar Chase's route tree to a lot of other elite receivers, and it's just very basic. And so that part does worry me. But I think that if Geno Smith and the Seattle offense was able to get into a shootout, I'm hoping that even if the offense is a little more basic, the talent of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase will be able to put them over the top. That's what I'm hoping. I might look like an idiot after this game. And I really hope that Zach Taylor doesn't do me dirty, because that's really the only thing I'm worried about.
Well, here goes another disagreement. I'm going New Orleans here. On offense, I know the offense has been perfect. They've been dealing with a lot of injuries. Although Michael Thomas didn't take part in practice today still, so who knows if he'll be there. But regardless, especially if he's out and Olave's out, last week, Taysom Hill was finally unleashed, and I wouldn't be shocked if they use him in all the sort of Swiss Army knife ways again this week, especially against Cincinnati. And I'm just not sure, like, how do you game plan against that when, some of these things you haven't really seen? There's not much to go off of for Cincinnati. So I expect that they'll be able to lean on him and Kamara, probably play a more conservative game. Hopefully they get one of the receivers back, though, because it will be scary. I'm not sure what they'll do passing game-wise. But on the other side, I just think the Saints front four, they'll be able to get to Burrow a little bit better than the Ravens did, especially just setting 4. I know they had went in that shootout with Seattle last week. I would expect them to be a little bit better. This is a very talented defense. I think I certainly expect this defense to to play better than it has recently. And maybe they're going through some things. They do have a bunch of new safeties, and Tyrann Mathieu has not been very good thus far. And we all know Marshawn Lattimore can be iffy, but maybe someone tells him that, hey, maybe he looks kind of like Mike Evans. Go ball out against Jamar Chase. I don't know, but I think they do match up well. Him and Adebo against Chase and Higgins. I'm sure they'll take their turns there. But yeah, you hit the main point. I just think too that Dennis Allen and this defense will be all over the very simplistic Cincinnati offense. So unless Cincinnati, maybe looks upon themselves and makes those adjustments, more pre-snap motion and a few more creative formations, like actually getting the receivers in bunches and maybe getting Jamar Chase to run something other than a slant or a go, might open things up. I'm just not confident it'll be this week. So I'm going New Orleans, especially at home. I think that they'll, I mean, basically at 1.5 at a 1.5 point spread, I'm thinking that they're going to win. So I think they pull off the upset here and win as the home dog. So yeah, that is the Dalton revenge game potentially between the Bengals and Saints. Now we head over to New York, where the Giants are hosting the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are favored by 5.5 against the Giants. is the once again we're talking revenge games. Wink Martindale, his former Ravens DC, playing his old team this week. So we recently praised Wink and why am I blanking on the head coach's name? Brian Daboll in the last pod. Who you rolling with? You rolling with Daboll and him, or John Harbaugh and Lamar?
I'm rolling with John Harbaugh and Lamar. I think that Harbaugh is going to know a lot of what Wink's going to do. Lamar's been practicing against this defense that Wink has employed his entire career, and obviously Wink's going to be aware of that. But honestly, there's been a lot of times that Wink has been aware of things and he hasn't made adjustments, and I'm kind of banking on that staying the same. I remember him making the comment about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and saying that, like, they ain't Hall of Famers yet. I don't see him wearing the gold jacket yet, or something like that. And that was his rationale for not adjusting in the second game after he got torched twice. So yeah, I'm going to take Baltimore here. It might also be because I'm not the biggest believer in the Giants. Like, yeah, they're 4-1, but I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm biased and I'm a Cowboys fan, but I just don't think they're an actual 4-1 team in terms of talent and skill. So I think that Baltimore is a better team than them. I do think that Brian Daboll is a great coach, but I think that Harbaugh is a great coach too. And I think that the Ravens are just a very unique type of team in which you can game plan for you can game plan for most of the NFL, and none of them are going to be like Baltimore because Lamar is just such a different type of player that it just changes things. So, yeah.
All right, well, I'm going with the Giants here. I think Baltimore probably still wins, but I think the Giants, they are great at mucking games up. That's kind of their style. Play ball control. That's what their offense is they're just one first down at a time. That's how they kind of killed us in the second half. They just ate up time of possession, and then our offense got out of sync. So credit to Daboll and them. They find ways to just continue moving the ball on that side. And on the flip side, obviously Lamar is amazing, and that's what does scare me about picking the Giants. Is I think Lamar can have a lot of opportunities to make plays this week, but I expect Wink Martindale, like he's mentioned or kind of alluded to, I'm sure he'll have some tricks up his sleeve for Lamar, as I'm sure the Ravens will. And I'm just kind of banking on the fact that I'm sure Wink will have a few things that he knows that, okay, well, Lamar doesn't like when, won't throw to this area or doesn't look, towards this if we do this. So I'm sure he'll have some tricks up in the bag for that. And also just, I know it was against the Bengals are a good offense, or talented offense at least, but I expect the Giants to have some success moving the ball. They aren't as reliant on the big play as, the Bengals are. And like we already mentioned, I mean, they're doing better with their receivers, maximizing their potential better than what the Bengals have been doing thus far. So I expect for them to get their guys open in different ways, even if it's still Darius Slayton and Davis Sills, the fifth out there. I think we've seen that this Baltimore secondary has been spotty. I know last Sunday had a good performance, but probably because Cincinnati's just so simplistic. So I was like, okay, we don't, they're all over their routes probably. So another difference for John and I. We'll see who is correct there. But speaking of eliminator picks, this next game should be pretty cut and dry. And that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are favored by 8.5 going to Pittsburgh. I'd already picked Pittsburgh in my eliminator pool, so I couldn't pick them again. But if you haven't, this is definitely the week to do so. But anyways, John, do you have any extra analysis in regards to this game? Because I assume I know where you're going.
No, don't really have anything special. Tampa's going to win here. The offensive line issues, Tampa's defensive line, they're just going to crush them. The linebackers are going to have success here. You're going against a rookie quarterback. Todd Bowles is a very experienced Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator, defensive play caller. So I think that him calling the plays, he's going to know what to do against Kenny Pickett and that team. And yeah, it's just, we've already seen Pittsburgh has struggled to get any sort of semblance of a run game going with Najee Harris. It's not going to change this week. It's going to be tough sledding the whole time. So yeah, and also without TJ Watt, I just don't think they're going to be able to get enough pressure on Brady to really make him uncomfortable. So yeah, pretty cut and dry Tampa Bay.
Yep, I'm going Tampa also. Like you mentioned, I mean, this if not the worst offensive line, one of the worst, definitely down there in that bottom of the barrel. And yeah, if you're facing Todd Bowles and his crazy blitzes, good luck. And then, yeah, you already mentioned Kenny Pickett. This is not a recipe for success for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, yeah, especially after they burned me last week. I'm not sure how you feel, but especially after they burned me a bit last week and curb stomped by Buffalo, I expect Tampa Bay, probably not a 35-3 fashion, but I'll be shocked if it's like a 28-6 type deal where this game's gonna be over by halftime. So sorry to my Pittsburgh friends that are Steelers fans, but I'm sure you shouldn't be shocked at this prediction / analysis. If you are, then I can't help you. No one can. Anyway, speaking of another blowout game potentially, Vegas feels this way for this one, and that is the LA Rams at LA at that beautiful SoFi Stadium. They are favored by 10.5, hosting the Carolina Panthers with Steve Wilkes as interim head coach. So, John, you feel like this is a get-right game for LA, or do you think that the Cardinals, the Panthers ride that interim head coach energy?
I feel like this spread is really big, and it's a trap game for the Rams because everything would indicate that the Panthers should get crushed. They just lost their head coach, right? And that's what I thought last year when my Baylor Bears played TCU. Baylor was the far superior team. TCU just fired their long time head coach in Gary Patterson, and then TCU came out and won the game. I think that Carolina's just going to get crazy. They got nothing to lose at this point. Like, you don't have a head coach. Current guy, Steve Wilkes, has been a head coach before and it didn't pan out. So now he's all of a sudden an interim guy. I think they're just going to throw some crazy stuff out there and try and make things happen. Yeah, you're without Baker Mayfield. And honestly, I do think that, I didn't say this in our recap, but it really sucks Matt Corral's out right now because I think this would be a really good moment to just like throw him out there as a rookie quarterback and see what you got in him. So it sucks that he's not going to be out there to potentially, play for Carolina the rest of the year. But I'm going to take Carolina still to cover here just because it feels a little too big for a Rams team that, as I mentioned last time, has scored less points than the Chicago Bears. And I think that like Brian Burns and Derek Brown and some of the guys they have in that front seven are good enough to wreak some havoc and cause the Rams some issues, at least in terms of scoring the ball. Even like J.C. Horn is one of the highest graded corners in the NFL through 5 games so far. He's been really impressive. So I'm going to take the Panthers to cover. I don't think they'll win, but I do think they'll cover.
All right, well, I'm going the other way. I think this is a get-right game for the Rams. You mentioned the fact that their Carolina DC also left with Matt Rule. Can't believe I almost forgot his name. And I think that will affect the defense also. I still have no confidence in the Carolina offense and Ben McAdoo with PJ Walker. I don't know if it's a PJ. He's a great story and he's a great backup, but I think especially probably not now. The Rams are probably the head coaching staff's probably telling the defense it's probably going to be on y'all, the success of our team going forward, to start making some turnovers, start making plays. And I expect this is a perfect opportunity to do so. A very poor offensive line, Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd hopefully should wreak some havoc. And then they already have trouble getting the ball to DJ Moore. So I don't, especially if Jalen Ramsey's probably on him at times, that's going to be tougher. For the Rams offense, I still one of the worst offensive lines, but I just expect this to be kind of like maybe a get-right game. Maybe they can find ways to at least run the ball efficiently. I'm not saying like you're going to be gashing them, but a little more efficiently. And then, maybe they can find a rhythm in the passing game off that. This is just, end of the day, this is just the perfect like get-right situation. You have a team that just fired their head coach and, DC left. This is the time for the Rams, if there is any, to right the ship a bit and in a way remind everyone, hey, we're the champs. We still have we still have Aaron Donald, we still have Matt Stafford, we still have Cooper Kupp, and we're still pretty good. This is and you're at home, so it's just the perfect time to make a statement right back and get some confidence back for them. So I'm not amazing analysis, but that's what I'm banking on. Although I am always scared of that interim head coach energy and the fact that Steve Wilkes was the Arizona Cardinals head coach for I think it was 1 year, so has a little bit of experience dealing with the Rams. So that could easily factor in. But I am going LA. John's going Carolina. It is a 10.5-point spread, so understandable there. But now we move, speaking of the Rams division in Arizona, that's where we're going, is to the Cardinals. They are favored by 2.5, and they're traveling to Seattle to face this red-hot Seahawks and Geno Smith. John, this is a very interesting game, surprisingly, in this battle of the birds. Who do you have here?
Well, I went back to look at some history on this one, and Cliff Kingsbury has historically had some good success against Seattle. I mean, they weren't like massive. It wasn't like the like Shanahan versus McVay type of stuff, but anyway, he's had some success. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals here. I just think that Seattle at some point is going to have their Detroit game, where like last week Detroit came back down to earth. And I'm not saying the Cardinals defense is, like Bill Belichick's defense by any means, but I do think that they had a really good game plan last week against Jalen Hurts, and I think that they can do the same thing against Geno Smith here. Obviously, they're not like comparable quarterbacks, but for the most part, I think that like we just saw what Vance Joseph did. He didn't even have like the greatest of games. Like there was some plays that I was watching back after that, and like they could have coached far better defensively just in terms of play calling. But he was still able to keep it close. So I'm going to say that Arizona takes the win here against Seattle. Also, actually, just to correct myself, so this is actually against my point. Apparently, Cliff Kingsbury, I think, is not. He's 2-3, 3-3, maybe 2-4. I looked up Kyler's record. Kyler's 2-3, and Kyler has been there the entire time Cliff's there. But I think Kyler maybe missed a game, so that actually hurts my point. But just wanted to clarify that.
Well, that helps me because I'm going Seattle. If I'm being 100% honest, I really don't have a great feel like for either of these teams. Like, we know that Seattle, yes, they've been putting up points, but like they're not like an elite offense. But they do have some playmakers, and obviously Geno's been really good, but mostly in Tyler Lockett and DK. And I do expect Kenneth Walker to keep the run game going. We already saw he had some explosive plays last week. I'm worried about Seattle defense though, because we know that they're one of the bottom of the barrel defenses, and although we've done our fair share of criticism of Cliff Kingsbury's offense, like Arizona does have some playmakers of their own, and Kyler himself is always a factor just because you got to run around and chase that guy, and then that makes you probably run more simple coverages on the back end, makes things a little bit easier. But I'm just rolling with Geno in the hot hand at home. I just think, especially, I imagine they might have some answers for Vance Joseph's defense. I feel like Vance Joseph will probably have to be ultra aggressive, especially late in the game. And especially with these playmakers, it's just one mistake. And if Geno can get the ball to them, which he's done so for the most part, I think they can make Arizona pay. So essentially, I'm kind of just leaning towards Seattle also because of home field advantage. I expect that to be a factor here too with their crowd, especially since they're 2-3, 3-2 or whatever. They're not terrible. So I still expect the crowd to be a huge factor for them, at least right now. We'll see as time goes on this year. But at least right now, yeah, I think that'll help them out on the defensive end, even though they don't have much on defense. So another disagreement for John and myself. But now we go to probably will be the game of the weekend, and it is the Buffalo Bills in a rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs, that AFC Championship rematch. Except for the Chiefs, no Tyreek Hill. This is the first time. I think Adam Schefter is the one that tweeted this, but first time Mahomes has been a home underdog in his career. So, John, and our modern and our 2020s Brady versus Manning type showdown here between these two, who are you going with?
I am going with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. The large reason why has been their red zone efficiency is like utterly historic right now. Like they're putting up crazy numbers in the red zone. And so I think that they're going to be really efficient when they get their opportunities here. And there's just been some times that because of Buffalo and their lack of a true run game, like, yeah, Josh Allen can do it, but then he's putting his body on the line, and it just gets really complicated when that kind of stuff has to happen. So I think that they might not be as efficient, and that's kind of what we're having to pick here. Like, this is such a close game that we're going to have to nitpick and look at the crazy tiny margins. And so I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs here, but I really don't feel good about it. Like, this is a game that if you're a bettor out there listening to this, I wouldn't touch this game because it could go any possible way. I could see a reality in which both teams blow each other out, and I could see a reality in which this is like an all-time classic game, and you have no idea who wins. So like that, they're just both that good of teams.
Could also see the reality where it's not a high-scoring game, but still close. Like I think we had that in that COVID year when these two teams played. It was like it turned out to be like a very defensive type game. I just want to confirm it. I did mention the spread for this one, right? If not, it's Buffalo favored by 2.5 against Kansas City.
Right.
In case I didn't.
I know you said they're the underdogs, but I don't know if you said it. Anyway.
Sorry. If I didn't say the spread, there's a spread. John's going Kansas City to, I guess, regardless cover, but maybe win. Yeah. I'm going Buffalo. Their offense gives me more confidence. They've been clicking on all cylinders pretty much most of the year. And their defense has gotten better up front with the addition of Von Miller, and the other guys like Gregory Rousseau have progressed and have been better this year. And then also, I think their defense, now that they only really have to worry about taking away Travis Kelce, and I don't foresee Kelce having 4 touchdowns against the Bills. That will be a focal point, is to take him away and make Mahomes look elsewhere. I'm just not confident the Chiefs offense will be able to move the ball or just have enough explosive plays otherwise if they limit Kelce. And then obviously, like I mentioned, the Buffalo offense is clicking. Josh Allen is balling, and we saw Gabriel Davis. He's looking good too. So it's good to see that he's healthy. They may get back Isaiah McKenzie this game. If not, we saw Khalil Shakir. He played really well last week in his filling in. So regardless too, I think Buffalo's probably, they're the team that lost that AFC championships. I feel like they might be a little more hungrier to come out and make a statement and show that they're the kings of the AFC. Even though they kind of did that last year, they still didn't end up as the 1 seed. And, they still lost. But I'm sure they want to get over this hump, this hurdle, and get another one over Kansas City. And especially, they probably have their eyes on that number 1 seed this year. So, potentially knocking the Chiefs down a peg, who are also probably going to be in that conversation towards the end of the year, will be further advantageous. So I'm going Buffalo. John's going with Kansas City. This will be a very fun game to watch. Hopefully it lives up to the hype. But if not, we got a great Sunday night game, which I'm sure you will be watching, because it is the Philadelphia Eagles at Philly. They are favored by 6.5 against the Dallas Cowboys, John's Dallas Cowboys, and franchise quarterback Cooper Rush will be starting. Anyways, John, who are you rolling with here? I know you hate the Eagles, or not hate, but I think right, or is hate the right word?
I hate the Eagles. They're like the one team in the league. Like, I feel like every fan has that one team that they're like, if I would root for anybody over them. I would root for the Giants over them. I'd root for Washington over them. I would root for literally any team against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm going to go with the Eagles to cover here. It might be the pod curse, but also this is one of the few weeks that like I actually do feel like this could be a pretty tough game for Dallas to actually really compete with, because the strength of Dallas so far has been that defensive line and how they've been able to wreak havoc. And I think it's really going to come down to that. I know that sounds really like simple, but this is the old, unstoppable force meets an immovable object kind of a thing. That's how close this game is. And so I'm banking on the Eagles offensive line and Jalen Hurts being able to control this one. I'm unfortunately taking them to cover, and hopefully the pod curse strikes again, and Dallas actually ends up covering and maybe even winning.
I will be taking Dallas to cover this game. I think Philly still ultimately wins. I think the Philadelphia offensive line will give your very dominant Dallas pass rush issues just because they're going to be so well balanced and it's a good offensive line. Obviously, they're probably going to run the ball, have some screens to, slow down that pass rush and Micah Parsons. And I'm hoping that, I'm assuming, Jalen Hurts seems to be a very good leader and such. I'm assuming that you probably looked at last week, especially, you mentioned his spray chart wasn't great over the middle. So I'm assuming him and Nick Sirianni are probably going to get in the lab, probably find a few more ways to get the ball down the middle to via play action or whatever. And then on the other side, I'm just not sure, too, that Dallas is going to be able to lean on the run game that they've kind of done and, play this conservative type, okay, we'll run the ball and then have a few creative pass or play action plays that we know Cooper can complete. I just don't think they can do that against Philly, especially the run game part. We know that Philly's got a good front, good D-line, good corners, too, so I think that they can match up well with, probably be Gallup and CD out there with Slay and Bradbury. So yeah, throw back to the Philadelphia offense. They're usually pretty careful with the ball. So I just, your defense has been very little reliant on turnovers to help the offense out. Get the offense a short field or heck, just score points themselves instead of the offense. I just don't think that those opportunities will be as, available this game because of how Philly is, run dominant, and Jalen Hurts, for the most part, takes care of the ball. He really doesn't make that many mistakes. So I think Philly takes care of business at home here, and but I think Dallas keeps it close. So I'm kind of threading the needle there for that one. So another difference,
just random,
got a lot of differences.
Random
this week.
question: hypothetically, if Dak Prescott was playing in this game, does this change your pick at all? Obviously, we haven't seen him so far this year, so it's a little tougher. Yeah. But I know for me, I know I didn't really touch on it, but I also do think that this is a game where Cooper Rush could struggle. If Philly was to make him turn the ball over a couple times, I wouldn't be shocked.
Oof. I would definitely be more confident in my Dallas pick covering. I probably wouldn't be 6.5.
Yeah, the line would probably be pretty even, to be honest.
Yeah. It would definitely be more of a coin. It would definitely be a coin flip. Right now in my mind, it's not really a coin flip. It's more like 60-40, 70-30 Philly's way. But you put Dak, if you were to tell me that Dak Prescott was starting, I'd be like, ooh, that's like 60-40, 50-50 right now. Just because your defense has been really good. And Philly's defense has been okay, but hasn't been great. And we know, especially with Michael Gallup back too, that Dallas could probably find some opportunities against Philly. But yeah, with Cooper Rush, they haven't really been pushing the ball downfield. I feel like the Philly will probably force them to, and it may not end well for old Cooper Rush, unfortunately. So yeah, I expect his undefeated starting streak to be snapped here.
I hope this doesn't happen, because as much as these narratives annoy me, at least it means that we're winning. I think this is going to be the game that all the people who are claiming that Cooper Rush is better than Dak Prescott are going to realize how dumb that comment is, because Philly is
quietly realize it and then be like, oh, well, and then
because Cooper Rush has not been playing from behind. He's been playing with leads. I think Philly is a very good team that they're going to take a lead at some point in this game, and Cooper Rush is going to have to prove himself at that point. So anyway,
I will say I am worried because Philly's done this. I feel like all year they kind of jump out to a really good lead, first half, except for really the Jacksonville game. But even Jacksonville game, they got going in the second quarter. And then, second half, they kind of just take their foot off the gas, and then teams kind of get back in. And that's my only worry. But if you had Dak, I would definitely be more worried about that. Cooper Rush, like you mentioned, haven't seen him, like you mentioned, play from behind, have to press the issue a bit, maybe force the ball downfield, take some risks. I haven't really seen much of that. So, yeah, that's why I'm leaning Philly to win, but Dallas to cover. But anyways, that's a Sunday night game. Now we go to Monday night, and that is the LA Chargers at LA playing the Denver Broncos in this AFC West showdown. Do you believe in Russ, or are we going with Herbert here, John?
This game feels surprisingly weird. If this was I don't know, just normally this feels totally the Chargers, but for some reason I got this feeling that like Denver with the extra time, maybe Keenan Allen isn't back yet. And so you got Patrick Surtain and that defense going against a Chargers offense that has sort of lacked that deep threat. And Mike Williams doesn't get to be that deep threat because there's no Keenan Allen to do the stuff underneath. I don't know. There's just some weird stuff going on here that makes me feel like Denver's going to keep it close. I don't think they're going to win because they have not really been able to consistently put up a lot of points. But I feel like the Denver defense, Justin Simmons coming back this week too, I feel like they're going to make a play or two here that's going to keep it close. So I'm going to go with the Broncos.
All right. Well, I'm going with the Chargers. Despite Keenan Allen being out, Herbert and this offense have still.
I will say he's actually not ruled out, but he went through individual drills today in practice, so he might come back. But I don't know.
I'm assuming he's going to be out. If he's in, great. Even more of a bonus since I'm going with the Chargers. I mean, they found ways to move the ball. Incorporating Eckler more. Everett's got involved, and Gerald Everett, their tight end's got involved a little bit in some games too, kind of taking that over the middle type stuff. And then you mentioned too, Mike Williams has done his share as well. So I think their offense will be able to move the ball somewhat efficiently. But the main reason why I am going to Chargers is I just don't have much confidence in this Denver offense. The weakness of the Chargers is obviously the run defense, but no Garrett Bowles. He's out for the rest of the season. And then no Javonte Williams. Melvin Gordon's, we know he got the fumbling issue, and I'm afraid that could creep up. I just don't have confidence that Denver can take advantage of that. And we've already detailed over the struggles of the past game. And especially if Russell, went into LA, had that surgery. I mean, if he's not right physically, like this offense, especially passing way, has just not been right on the same page really for them all year. And I just don't expect them to all of a sudden figure it out against a very good Chargers secondary too. I just don't think this will be the week they do. Maybe maybe some things start to click a little bit, and maybe they find a little bit of rhythm. But I just don't expect it to be enough to beat the Chargers this week, especially at LA. Maybe it was at Denver, maybe, but I mean, I thought that last week, but that obviously didn't happen. And I mean, the fact that Russ, like I said, Russ may not be 100% physically, and he just hasn't been 100% on the same page offense wise. Him and Nathaniel Hackett. As much as I criticize Brandon Staley and his aggressiveness on fourth down, for the most part, the Chargers have a pretty good plan of attack and they execute it well, as opposed to Denver. They really have not offensively. Although the defense has kind of been the saving grace, which could be here. That's what I am worried about, like cover wise. But I just think I'm just going with the Chargers. I just kind of like with the Thursday night game. That's the team I have the most confidence in. I'm like, okay, I know for the most part what I'm going to get out of them. While Denver, it's like some of it's still a projection to me, like some of the hopes on offense. And at week 6, I'm not relying on projections anymore. But could be proven wrong very easily. But yeah, that is the week 6 picks against the spread. Had some bye weeks this week. We're starting to get the bye weeks, so luckily we won't be here for to almost 2 hours. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 differences this week. So maybe this is the week that scales finally tip back to John's favor. He can cut into the lead or even take the lead with all the games we have differences. Knowing us, they will come down to the Monday night game, and that will be the tipping point. It'll just be a 1 game difference. But yeah, did you want to do any locks of the week, or you want to call it there?
Sure, let's do it. Let's.
We already mentioned. What was it? Was it?
I actually totally forgot about doing this. Yeah. So let's.
I think we mentioned Miami was probably a lock to lose.
Well, hey, here's how we're gonna do it.
Miami?
So we're each gonna pick. You can pick up to 5 if you want. You have to pick 1, so you don't have to pick multiple. You got to pick at least 1,
like 2.
And we're gonna do like a draft. So you get 1, and then I get 1. You get 1, I get 1. There we go. And then next week we'll swap. So then I'll go first, and so yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, just remember that next week. That you go first
I'll remember. I'll remember. So
otherwise, I'll just take it.
Like I said, don't have to take multiple. One I think you only have to take at least 1.
Yeah, I'm taking. So for my first one, and I'll throw it to you. I'm taking Atlanta. I just I mean, I think San Francisco's a more talented, better coach team at this point. So I'm gonna go Atlanta. I think that was when I mentioned that.
Wait, so you're locking San Francisco to cover?
Sorry, locking. I got like survival. Yes, I'm locking San Francisco for sure. I think, gun to my head, if someone said we need, I think I would pick San Francisco as my winner.
Okay,
my champion per se.
Oh man, this is tough. I am gonna lock. Man, a lot of my picks. I'm looking at my picks now, and I'm like, I'm gonna lock Minnesota just because Miami with Skylar Thompson. That feels a little rough, and a lot of my other picks, I'm not. I don't know. That's the one I feel the most confident. I guess.
Well, I mean, okay. I'm taking the next easiest one. I'm taking Tampa. So once again, sorry Pittsburgh, but that one's. Kenny Pickett's gonna be running around a lot. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good
one.
Will
not leave that. I also want. You probably can't bet these things, but I would also bet he will not leave that field to clean jersey. So,
yeah.
Anyways.
Oof. I'm gonna get a little risky here. I don't think it's actually that risky. I'm locking Baltimore. I think they're gonna crush the Giants. Wow. I think the Giants are gonna be exposed for the frauds that they are, and Daniel Jones is gonna have like 2 interceptions or something.
Just be ready if the Giants prevail. Just be ready if a certain someone gets into your DMs and starts. Although who knows if they're still paying attention, but just saying. I'm surprised they didn't jump in my DMs, but after they beat the Packers, some of our Giants representatives. Sorry.
Anyway.
Anyways, if I had to pick one more, I'm gonna go with the Chargers. I already kind of alluded to it. Like I have no confidence. No is a little tough. Very little confidence in Denver riding the ship here this week. Offensively, their defense has been fine. Offensively, it's
right.
I feel like we've used every word in the book for their offense.
I'm gonna stand at 2. So if you want to take another one, go for it. But I don't feel confident.
I'm not gonna take another one. I want to take the Rams, but that's still scary. Just because, like I said, that new interim head coach energy can sometimes be real. Yes, that too. Like I'm just afraid that I'm just afraid they don't get the run game going. It is a good Carolina defense, and that's the only reason I'm not going LA Rams. Like that would be though if I had to pick another one. I would probably do that one. That's the one I have like the next best confidence in. But yeah, I'm for sure very confident in San Fran, Tampa Bay, and the Chargers. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that was once again. If you are for some reason betting or for some reason taking our advice, first off, remember only bet what you can lose.
Yep.
What you can afford to lose. And obviously make sure it's legal because we don't bet. We can't because it's not, we live in Texas. So anyhow, if you want to catch more of our stuff, whether we have our YouTube, which is our main source, and we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers there. That is Shut Up and Ball. You want to see John's awesome editing at work there. Also, you want to see more John's awesome editing via our Instagram. That's at Shut Up and Ball Pod. We have a Twitter and TikTok. That's at Shut Up and Ball. And we are on all podcast streaming platforms if you want to just listen to us or listen to segments. But anyways, we will be back next week, of course, with the week 6 reactions and then obviously picks. And yeah, hopefully our picks lean. Hopefully it's interesting, our picks. But like I said, I feel like it's going to come down to the Monday night game. We're going to split it. And then that's just what always happens. Literally not intentional between John and myself. It would just be nice to get like one great week, but that's why picking games is tough. That's why I'm exactly 500. And anyways, y'all enjoy your weekend. We'll see you all next week.